The EDM scene took its utmost success at a pivotal time, adjacent and carefully related to that of Avicii's career from 2011 to 2017 specifically. During that particular time frame, EDM scene was providing countless chart-topping hits, replacing dying rock and punk pop cultures, giving motility to a new wave of youth culture, and soon enough became a worldwide phenomenon. This was the era when EDM was topping pop charts for the first time, DJs got paid six figures for DJ set for the first time, and the community felt most connected to the root of the movement. Avicii played a huge role as a catalyst to this movement and to the rise of it, while on the other hand, SFX Entertainment, a company run by media mogul Robert Sillerman, that will be my moneymaker, escalate the global rise of the scene with its capital and monopoly of scene assets. However, I love the music, but this scene contributed to a very fast burnout and an almost predictable eventual downfall of the EDM scene from its peak. This article will investigate an often overlooked side of how the career of Avicii tied with Robert Sillerman monopolizing corporation SFX Entertainment, and how both these entities tied very closely to the rise and fall of the EDM empire as we know it. New culture emerging. This culture wouldn't have emerged the way it did if it were not for the ripe timing that was, which proved to be the most prominent factor for seeing the cultivation of the movement to its peak heights. Some crucial roles were played by online video culture, as it was just starting up, such as live streaming getting on board with YouTube and other platforms, and the EDM sound really fit perfectly with the new rising video culture. Secondarily, it was also the time where high activity was happening on music forums that were run by various blogs and various artists. Avicii was, as a matter of fact, discovered firstly via these forums, as he was spotted on radar by multiple already established artists and other scouts ahead. So the discovery on online blogs at the time was very ripe to get discovered, especially in the early days of YouTube and SoundCloud. Triterially, EDM provided a fresh sound palette for the youth culture in general, as the new generation, and with the decline of pop and rock music, there was a big opening, and this opening was ripe to be seized by EDM. Cracking the code. Many artists were pushing the boundaries of EDM, but no one yet could crack the code of the big hit formula until Avicii came along, of course. There are no doubt Avicii stands out as the first figure in EDM scene who cracked the alchemical code to break out pop status hits. Until then, nobody in the scene really hiked this high. Although figures like Daft Punk and Guetta tried this here, Avicii broke the formula by bringing out emotional-centric themes and blends. He was able to fuse live instrumentations, elements of pop, elements of country, and EDM seamlessly, making his songs very emotionally accessible to a wide range of listeners, and equally playable for festivals and radio. And fair to mention, great for a multitude of themed playlists. Before Avicii, EDM was all drops and hypes. After Avicii, storytelling became center figure and fusion became a new face of the art. His music's subject matter related to the widest of audiences, with the content of his music focusing on uplifting life stories and dreams of future and past. He proved that EDM could evolve beyond the drop. Emotional songwriting mattered, and dance music could be made with acoustic guitars. Monopoly. SFX, a company founded by Robert Sillerman, saw the potential of the new music culture movement and started buying out all assets related to EDM under the strategy to consolidate the whole scene, literally. In Pac-Man fashion, SFX started gobbling up all big EDM festivals, promoters, labels, distribution companies, spending hundreds of millions of dollars acquiring these assets. Leveraging the hype around EDM, they attracted investors and turned the subculture into a product. In less than a year, EDM was more popularized with the aid of SFX Entertainments as they pushed the limits of artists and the industry, commercializing the genre and capitalizing all the fruits it has to offer. Among the assets that they bought out is Tomorrowland, Beatport, a lot of other promoter agencies and distribution leads. They exported assets of the scene to the US, which was still fresh in EDM compared to Europe. They not only disrespected the culture by commodifying and flagging up the price figures, but also caused much distress to the artists who were under pressure to release, promote, and tour with no clear guides. The dealings committed by SFX consumed the industry soon enough and led to the eventual loss of Subculture, which turned into a tourist wonder and landmark for a mobile phone. Although they helped kickstart the commercial side of culture big time and turn it mainstream more than it was already getting, it equally contributed to short-sightedness of the eventual decline due to sub-neutralization of the scene. The man behind SFX, Robert Sillerman, was a straight-out monopolist with no responsibility towards the culture, more towards the cash that was to be made behind. The innovation scale tipped off, and it gave the industry a bunch whole of lessons, which we're going to recap on by the end of this article. When audiences and journalists talk of the fall of EDM, the forgotten piece of the puzzle is often overlooked. Perhaps because that same piece commercialized the movement. But the damage far superseded the benefits. The damages included cultural distortion, overpricing events, and relinquishing on hype. Also included overburdening successful artists with demanding touring, releasing schedules, with inconsideration to mental health. Parallels between SFX, Avicii, and how it tied into the EDM scene was proportionally quite staggering, to be fair. First of all, when Avicii broke out his hit levels in 2010, about the same time SFX was starting to get into business big time, and they were leveraging on the hype already being gained. Number two, the same curve line of the rise and fall of Avicii mirrors that of SFX Entertainment exactly, as the artist grew in popularity and started to exceed himself in terms of commercial fruits. SFX was also gaining peak status among the industry and gobbling up a lot of the assets it had to offer. The same time that Avicii was demising and starting to look into the prospects of quitting, that was the same time that SFX was also moving towards bankruptcy and towards certain individuals within its board decided to cap out and get out. And that was around 2017. So eventually the EDM bubble burst, and these two stand as center figures into the whole explosion and implosion of that same scene, from a macro company level to a micro artist level, who both contributed fairly into the bursting up and the blowing of an entire movement. After the EDM bubble burst, of course, it became a predictable drop culture. Many DJs pivoted to pop and other, and the big room sound slowly faded. The greed corporation holding the enterprise failed to listen and foresee the downfalls of the culture. It was leeching on with no understanding but to monetary prospects it may lead. The parasite was to fall to with the pending downfall of the body of EDM. And of course, in corporate fashion, before filing bankruptcy, Robert Sillerman and his early investors and executives, board members cashed out with tens of millions of dollars. Avicii and others lost and paid cost psychological and physiological turmoil. By 2017, EDM was on the slope of decline and the future was out of sight of the movement. The lessons. To recap on this whole wave that grew and subsided over the span of 7 years, here are a few clear lessons to assimilate from this one. Number one, underground culture thrives on authenticity. If you try to commercialize this subculture, you end up hurting it and alienating audiences. Avicii got under the pressure of remaining commercial even after a certain threshold in his career, which added to his mental demise as well as the demise of the creative capacity of the scene as a whole. Number two, when something hypes up at high rates and first in a very short span, there's a good chance it will not be permanent. SFX thought that riding the hype could make a permanent case out of it, which was evidently not right. They went in depth and could not strategically sustain the culture that brought it. The innovation scale plummeted. Number three, lack of innovation halts the culture. EDM and its formalic exposition and production led to its inevitable downfall, and byproduct was a toxic culture. This formalic exposition expressed itself as you got the same festivals running year after year, same lineups, same formula of music, etc., etc. In today's EDM, mental health is a big topic, but the structure remains kind of the same, and with the pressures of social media, new challenges have presented themselves. EDM in many ways has rebuilt itself and stagnated on some accounts. New acts show promise. The story of Avicii, SFX, and the rise and fall of EDM is an epic and a short-lived legend with potent lessons on fronts of industry structure, artist health, arts incorporation, the make and end of trends, ripe timeframes, the making of sonic identity, and music culture evolution. I hope you took a share of insight or lessons from this article. I certainly enjoyed bringing it to you, and stay on the look for this new segment on Total Visions. See you on the next one.